This is Season 3 of Flute Unscripted. Hi, I'm Caity Massoud, and I sit down with a new artist every week and share their uncensored stories with you. This podcast is brought to you by Flute Center of New York, the marketplace for flutes. Join us, subscribe, rate and review us, and please stay tuned to the end of this episode for a special Flute Center of New York discount code for our podcast listeners. Amy Porter was a perfect choice for our live show today. She admits she is most comfortable being center stage and star of the show, one of the many reasons she ultimately left her position with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and pursued a solo career after winning first prize in the NFA Young Artist Competition and the Kobe International Flute Competition. Amy dazzles on stage as a soloist with her powerful sound and her famous ball gown dresses. She has also performed a range of new repertoire, collaborating with composers and being the inspiration for new works. Additionally, she has published her own transcriptions of the Bach cello suites and released a number of recordings. Amy graciously answered questions and let us pick her brain about all things performance, career, and personal life related. Thank you everybody for coming today and being here for Amy's performance and for our little Q&A. We're going to chat, and I have some questions that I'm dying to ask her and to learn more about her. But at the end, there'll be an opening for any questions. So do your brainstorming now. Start to think of anything that you just need to know, and you can ask your questions at the end. So thank you, Amy, so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure. Before we delve into everything flute related, I actually want to talk about trumpet, surprisingly.
Yay! Yay!
I don't know if everyone knows, but you were playing trumpet for a while in addition to flute.
Correct.
And, I think everybody kind of agrees that we're all just musicians and we kind of choose what we want our voice to be. And that can be, if that is flute or maybe another instrument or voice. How did you decide to ultimately go with flute and kind of leave the trumpet behind?
That's a great question. I think I had the best father in the world who actually gave me the choice. So I was 9 when I started the flute. I was probably singing. I know I was singing before I spoke. And my father was an amateur pianist. He played in the Navy in the war. So he was, my parents were very musical. So I think my voice is actually just music. So it doesn't matter what I'm playing. Music is better than speaking for me. I speak music better than English, right? So when my brother came and played the trumpet out of the U.S. Army, he played Alfie for my mother one summer, and I thought, okay, well that has 3 keys, and my flute has a lot more keys, so I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try that. And I said, and I have perfect pitch, which made it very simple. So I said, may I please try your trumpet? And he gave it to me. And he was very upset when I came back out in the living room and played Alfie for my mother, the same piece he had just played for my mother. So then I thought trumpet was way more fun than the flute and the band, and I went to a very small school which had a band of probably 15. So I decided I'm going to play the trumpet, and my parents gave me a trumpet when I was 10. So I studied with the band director on the trumpet, and then I had this very important flute teacher in Delaware, and then I went to Philadelphia, so it became even more stressful at the level I was playing on the flute. I was in the youth orchestra of Greater Philadelphia, and here I was, a closet trumpet player. So one very rainy night, it was Rittenhouse Square in Philly, and I had just come out of a lesson, and I sat in the car, and my father said, "How did it go?" And I said, "I had a very bad tone." And I almost had to confess that I played the trumpet. But I couldn't tell her, he said, "Well, did you play jazz at 4 p.m.?" And I said, "Yes, I played jazz." It wasn't good, So, he said, "Well, then you'll have to make a choice." And I'll never forget looking out of the car thinking, well, Dad, there's no choice, but how nice of you to give me one. There was no choice. So I always think that I am a flutist in a trumpet player's body, or am I a trumpet player in a flute player's
Right.
body? I'm not sure. But I have a little brass player in me.
Is there anything that you translate
Well,
from?
I do, very much so, yes. The close lips, the lips together sometimes for the low register, definitely. You know, there's a bit of, I always think the lips are just the receivers of everything. It's the cave entrance, I call. The lips don't really need to produce anything. It's the air before them, right? So if the lips are like a little bit like the trumpet, where they're a little supple, but they're also engaged, that's the perfect flute embouchure as well. So I have a great time on April Fool's concerts, and I have a great time at Halloween.
Sure,
when
yeah.
everybody asks, in Michigan we have a tradition every few years of an April Fool's concert where all the faculty are encouraged to play the instruments they used to play, and it is just the most hysterical thing. And the other rule is you're not allowed to practice.
Oh,
So-
wow.
and the other story I'll tell you about the trumpet was that I met the former professor emeritus at Oberlin of trumpet. He's very famous, and I said, I used to play the trumpet, and I said I was very good because I was principal trumpet of Delaware All-State Band in this big. In the same year, I was principal flute of the Delaware All-State Orchestra. And so I told this Oberlin professor, I'm really good. He said, of course you're good. Every trumpet player thinks they're good.
Typical.
Not every flute player.
Right,
so
right.
I'll say I was a great trumpet player. Flute, not so much. Really had to work at it. But I think I just encourage, I bring this talk into the methods and the music education classes every April. And all the students are encouraged to encourage the young people to play many instruments and not just one.
And keep their doors open, too.
Yes, and sing, sing, sing.
Yeah.
Because that's all we do in the instrument is sing.
And you were speaking about your father. You had a really big support system with your parents. You
Yes.
lost them when you were young.
Yes.
What was that like then, learning to support yourself and kind of be your own champion?
I think you're your own champion anyway if you have parents that are super supportive. She told me I could be president one day, and I actually was, of 2 flute clubs. She told me I could play in the Boston Symphony, and I did for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
She told me, so if you're telling your child that they could do anything and they are the best, they're going to walk out of the house saying, I think I could be the best. Now, of course, there was, from age 14 to 24, you're going through this incredible, horrific, metamorphosis of who you are and learning who you are. And am I going to play this thing for a living? Am I, do I go into music? And I think it's really important to just keep your head down and keep doing it and just believe in yourself, so that if your parents aren't around, and they lost them when I was 26, and I actually was on stage performing in Tokyo, in Japan, playing Mozart when my mother passed away. I did the math on the flight home with the hours and the delays and everything, and I figured I'd like to keep it like that. I'd like to think that I was doing exactly what she wanted me to do when she passed away. So I went through this feeling of, the power from them got even stronger, I have to say. The fact that they were gone made it even more powerful that I could do this, and okay, Mom, I'd look up and go, okay, you're right, it's working. So I think if you can instill early on that your child can do anything, that I'm living example.
And even you had those moments of doubting yourself, you're saying. So those days when you don't know if you're going to, keep up with the flute and pursue it as a career?
Well, not so
Not
much
to
that.
degree?
No. No, when I was 12, I looked at the math board and I was like, okay, that's hard. And I had a pencil in my hand. I was like, this is easy, and I'm going to do this.
Right.
So I knew I was going to be a flutist from age 12, and no one was going to tell me I couldn't. Now, how much of the flute I was going to go forward with, how much of the world I was going to be able to see, and how many lives I would be able to touch was unknown, and I don't think we can ever know. As they say, you put a flashlight on your head, and then it beams out, and that's about as much as we can see. So.
And you got your Atlanta position very young, too, and you kind of dabbled with that for a while and discovered that wasn't the right path.
Yes, 2 weeks after my mother passed away, they told me I won the job. So I was like, well, I'm making hardly any money in New York City, and now somebody's offering me money. And at the time, Ms. Baxtresser was kind of starting to encourage me to maybe I could sub in the Philharmonic. Some of the Juilliard students get to do that sometimes. And right when the call came, Christina Smith and they had 2 openings at the time, and I said, can I have concertos? Because I really loved what I just did for you, communicating and bringing music that I love. The orchestra repertoire is amazing. It's just not my kind of amazing.
Right.
I love to hear the random trombone sonata and the horn sonatas, and I love to be, scholarly about music. So my heart wasn't singing, and I was just the luckiest human, really, to have that job. But I thought one day, I wonder if I could do another competition. And that same day, Muramatsu had sent me the Kobe flyer, and it literally fell on the floor. And I reached out, and I thought, oh, maybe I could do this. It's in September, though. I'm not sure. It's in August, excuse me. And I asked the Atlanta Symphony if I could leave, and they said no. And then I asked again. I always say please, and they said no. And then I asked a third time, and they said no. And then the phone rang one day, and they said, well, we've changed our mind. Okay, so I quickly took what, when your parents pass away, you can take what they've given you and do something with it. So I brought my pianist. I paid for her hotel. I paid for everything. I made this huge investment of going to Kobe. And it paid off beautifully. So I think I've basically spent what I made. But that's what I encourage you all to do. If you do NFA, you're going to have to, the prize is $2,000. You're going to have to spend $2,000 to make $2,000. You don't always, go into it thinking that the purse is everything. You have to invest. Like, I brought the pianist, right? And I knew what I was doing. In fact, in the orchestra, I was so nervous. So in the Brahms symphonies, I would wrap my leg around the chair and get stressed and not breathe. But in a concerto, I'm in control of my product. It's me with this amazing conductor, and it's me with these amazing people, and I know what they do because I've sat there. So I think for me, leaving the orchestra was a decision from my heart. Like you said, I followed my heart, and it was just because, look, I mean, when your parents pass away, it's good 3 years before you even wake up and know what's happening. And so then that was Kobe, and then I came back and sat in the chair for another 6 years so, thinking, okay, I've just won this big prize and nothing's happening. So one day, a very, very smart man named Peter Whitty said to me, do you know that Michigan has an opening? And I said, well, why would I want that? And he said, well, don't you want to get back to a solo career? Oh, well, yes. So some of your friends actually listen when you're talking about yourself. Yeah. So I entered the search, and it was just the most magical audition and just the most magical relationship. I played Enesco, Telemann, Bozza, Image, all the pieces that people learn in college. I didn't come in and play a premiere and all these things. So I was just so elated to move forward, and that was 19 years ago.
Yeah, approaching 20 almost.
Approaching 20. Yeah, they don't really look at you until 30 years in academia.
Right.
20.
That's nothing.
It's nothing.
Over the past 20 years, Amy has shaped the University of Michigan Flute Studio. Finding her footing as a teacher included tapping into the freedom her position granted her to maintain an active solo career and fostering meaningful relationships with her students. Amy takes pride in her students' success and attributes it to her individualized and tailored music program, suiting the specific needs of each unique flutist. How do you think your teachings developed over that time span? I mean, it is a long time to find yourself as a teacher and to grapple with, juggling life and
Correct.
Making it all work.
Life and what life brings you.
Yeah.
Tragedies and joys. And your students live it all with you. I think what I've discovered in my time, I had to tell them that this is going to be a relationship where I'm not your mother and I'm not your best friend. And once that was laid down around year 2, I think, everybody started coming, because when you get a new teacher, they're going to test you.
Right.
Not everybody's going to want to study with you. At the time, there were several teachers. So I put it down to one teacher by the time I came in my second year, and I said, if somebody's going to play the flute, it's going to be kind of in this tradition of the Philadelphia woodwind method. Plus, it's the Juilliard education in my room, because I didn't go to Michigan, and I couldn't have gone to Michigan. It's very amazing place. You have to do everything, and my students do everything. So I think the biggest way my teaching has evolved is that I go with the student. I follow them. I follow them in their emotional lives to the point where I'm not their mother and I'm not their best friend. I follow them with them in their journey of, am I going to play music? And I love to introduce things like the Bachelor of Musical Arts degree to people. They start smiling and breathing. I mean, I don't have to do this and get up in front of people, because some people don't want to get up in front of people. So I have students who I tailor make a career or an education for, and hopefully a means for a career. So if I know that you like administration, we're going to talk about that. If I know you like orchestra, we're going to talk about that. So I'm really asking them to tell me everything, keep me abreast of what it is your passions are and any doubts.
And what is it that you look for in a new recruit? Because your studio, I think, by now has certainly over the years gained a reputation of being very difficult to get into. So what is it that kind of draws you to a particular candidate?
I always say I can't make you a nice person, but I can make you a great flutist. So if you're a nice person, that really helps. And I don't know if you've met anyone from my studio, but they're really nice people. So I think it's been a bit of a decision process for me to take the people that are super nice and super fun and we get along great, and I think I'll wake up in the morning wanting to be with you, and so I'll actually say in the audition, I like you. And last year my student Justine said, I like you too. And I was like, boom, and in the audition process I write down, that we had this moment, and I coach in the audition. It's not just 15 minutes of me just staring at you or eating yogurt or whatever, Is
that important to kind of see how people take feedback as well?
Yeah, and how I work with you.
Yeah.
You have, so I say that about eating yogurt because in my Curtis audition, I was 17, and it got down to me and another boy, and it have finals. And the finals kept going on, me and the other boy, me and the other boy, me and the other boy. It got so bad that Julius Baker got really hungry, and they ordered him barbecued chicken.
Oh, my God.
And my mother, my British mother, I'd never smelled barbecue chicken. She never made barbecue. So that made me miss my B-flat thumb key on my Mendelssohn Scherzo. And you saw me, looked up, and went, we're done. I was not at Curtis. Yeah. I went to Juilliard because of the barbecue chicken smell. But
are you able to enjoy barbecue chicken today?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think in my auditions, I try to understand where I was, I do give sight reading, though, which is super telling, very telling. And it's the final movement of the 12th Fantasia of Telemann.
Well, now you're telling everybody. You're giving
away
No.
The people probably won't. No.
Yeah.
It's okay. Nobody really realizes it either. But so I think it's. I hear that it's hard to get into, and people say, if I've heard that apparently I have to know you, but as many will attest, I don't have to know you, right? People say, I've never met her in my life, and I got in. But really, it was because of the biggest factor is that you've shown me that you are a very, compassionate and you human being, and that you don't have a knife in your back pocket. And I can see the knife. I can see the knife in your eyes. So I'm just really all about the human.
And that's a really holistic approach to playing the flute, which is kind of your thing as well. You're really into wellness and fitness. Am I right in that? Yeah. So how do you think that helps your flute playing, and do you encourage your students to kind of follow the same path?
Yes, absolutely. It's a 20 minutes on a treadmill is the minimum for them. Some of them have never been on a treadmill, so and then quite often people will think that lifting something is going to hurt me. That is the other myth. So there's a lot of myths out there, but I think the heart is a muscle that really needs to be worked, and it's a muscle that is the psoas actually causes fight or flight response. So if you know how to run or you know how to lift a weight, you know how to perform. It's the same thing. It's the same muscles. My trainer has trained Olympic ice skaters and hockey players. So I do some pretty crazy stuff. I'll be in the middle of something screaming, "Is this a hockey thing?" And he'll say yes. But it's good for you. So I actually have had former doctoral students come with me. This year I had 2 master's students come with me to the training, just because they can see how a woman 30 years older than they are can also stay fit. And it's, for me, it's pretty much vanity, because I just want to keep wearing nice dresses and look good on stage, and you look good on because the camera will put 10 pounds on you. So I was told by a stylist 10 years ago, "Oh, by the way, lose 25 pounds." And I said, "Okay." And a lot of people would say, "What? You didn't say, take a hike." No, I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I did. And it changed my life for the better. I feel like I'm aging backwards,
You're talking about getting to wear the fancy dresses. There's a lot of videos of you on YouTube, too, wearing your big ball gowns on stage.
They're still around. I might sell them on eBay or something.
Is it ever distracting when you play to have, I don't know, for some people, they want to be very minimal and
so I
comfort.
don't choose my gowns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a stylist. So that green dress on for Hue Fantasy and the Hello Kitty dress and all the bird, that's not me.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a woman. I've had a couple, but at first was Megan, and she'd say, "Meet me at Nordstrom's tomorrow at 10." So I would walk into Nordstrom's, and all the ladies at Nordstrom's would part. They'd be like, "She's here. The client is here," because my stylist had gone the day before and pulled all the gowns. And I was just a body. I would just stand there, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, this is so great!" And I'd say, "But
you need
I
to
have
breathe.
to breathe." Yeah. And so I'm begging my stylist now. I want to eat a pork chop, I tell her, in this dress. So the dresses are chosen by them to a couple different reasons. I'm not supposed to look like I'm dated. Like you could now, probably Hue Fantasy now you go, that was 18 years ago, but no, to look like you're wearing a trendy piece. You want to look a little more classic on stage.
Timeless. Yeah.
And also, I am not a stylist. I don't know. So I trust people who do know. And for instance, right now, if I have a ponytail in a concert, I kind of get, she says, "Is that a pony?" I say, "Well, I didn't have, right? I just borrowed this." I forgot my hair bag. So there are these women that, okay, so they help me, they give me great advice on the body type, the hair, what to do with the hair, anything from the nails to the accessories. It's just this is Larry and this is Amy. So it's,
and the ultimate accessory is in your lap, right? The beautiful Haynes flute.
Yes. I don't know if everybody knew, but I was a Muramatsu player for 36 years. 36 years from when I was 12. So that fateful day when I was 12 and I decided to be a professional flutist, Murray Panitz was selling his flute. So we got Murray Panitz's flute, and I don't know where it is anymore. And then I had a 9K with silver keys that won me all my gigs. And then I had a 14K for a few years. And then, you know what? I decided I wanted a flute to teach me something new, because I was just practicing and everything was great. And so I was like, okay, either I get out the trumpet or I have a conversation with Alan Weiss. And so I was in England, and I had a great conversation with Alan Weiss, because I didn't know Alan Weiss, and I needed to talk to somebody who didn't know me. I didn't know, and they weren't gonna, lead me down a path that they should think I'm on, because they know me. So we talked for 2 years. And then they took the specs that I wanted. I went for an offset G because I have injured my hands, this hand 3 times on a dog walk. Just a commercial, walk your dog shouldn't walk you. So I went for an offset G when I had an inline, I went for a different cut of head because I had the other kind of cut, I wanted the P cut for Porter, but it just didn't work out, so I have the M. But so I have this amazing, so they put together this, I think it was the second one they made, white gold 14K rose gold keys, and an N cut. So it's engraved. I went all out for the engraving. Yeah. So this is my last flute, and I adore it. It's a new voice for me. I feel like I sound different. So the Bach cello suites were all played on the Muramatsu, and while I was in the recording session in Hill Auditorium, the box arrived with the Haynes in it. And so my whole crew said, Amy, are you going to open that box? And I said, no. No. So I finished the Bach cello suites recording. I went home. We popped the champagne. No. I opened the one flute with the 2 head joints, and I proceeded to film the G major cello suite prelude for Finley twice, once on one head joint and once on another head joint. And we picked that day in the kitchen. And it was a wonderful journey. And it wasn't like a divorce, really, because I have been with that family, Muramatsu family, for 36 years. They've known me since I was an infant, basically, and I love them and they love me. And I called them and said, this is a normal question that any professional would want. What can a new instrument teach me? So we just are still madly in love, and I still direct my students to one of 3 major instruments, and I adore the Muramatsu and the Haynes. So. And Mr. Muramatsu had come over to Boston to ask Mr. Haynes about his flutes back in the day. So is that it?
That is all. Yes. Thank you so much again for coming. It's been a joy.
Thanks, everybody.
Following the live question and answer portion, Amy mingled with her fans to catch up with their familiar faces and get to know new listeners too. You could tell she loves to engage with her audience, no matter the size, no matter their experience, as long as she can use her distinctive voice to share her passion for music. Thank you to Amy Porter for such a candid live interview. Music selections for this episode feature recordings from Amy's albums, performing the Burton Sonatina and Carl Gaylert's Sonata Appassionata. This has been an episode of Flute Unscripted. This podcast is sponsored by Flute Center New York. Visit their website at flutesforsale.com for the largest selection of new and pre-owned instruments. Use this season's promo code LISTEN for a special deal of $50 off any purchase of $4.99 or more. You can follow the Flute Center on Instagram and like them on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest events and masterclasses. Special thanks to our owner Phil Unger, the Flute Center team, and Stefan Huskoldson for our theme music.